Okay, so I'm gonna try to make a video about the whole migrant thing. People are calling the migrant crisis or the quote unquote illegal immigrant crisis. And the reason I say quote unquote illegal is because it's not illegal if they're being led in and driven in and even probably kidnapped in, some of them. So, obviously, I'm not Nick Johnson. I'm not one of the exploitative YouTubers. I'm not going to be walking around like manipulatively, secretly recording people and all that stuff. And I'm not going to be doing any of that, obviously. But I am going to talk about things I noticed and show some pictures. I'm probably not going to be able to record too much of anything anyway, because I would want to record something about the whole delivery jobs that they do though, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that. But I guess to give an introduction to what I already have noticed in where is this? Manhattan, Midtown, Times Square, New York, Newark, New Jersey, and I think New York, New Jersey, because it's all in the same area apparently. But what I've noticed is that of course there's the European migrants, and as you may know, there's already been European, specifically Russian and Chinese sleeper cell spies come into the country since the 60s. Or sleeper cell, well, yeah, you could call them spies, but military, for better words. So there's them. There's a lot of Asian and Russian people, it seems. But as far as the migrant shelters, though, I didn't really see a lot of Asians at the migrant shelters. It really just seems like a lot of South Americans. So Venezuelans and people from places like that. And then some Europeans. So I guess Ukrainians, maybe Russians too. Seems like there's a lot of Russians around here. But one thing I can say though is that there's a lot of people from the UK and from France around here. Not that they're migrants, but that's just something I noticed. That's a side thing. Or at least a lot of people speak French, I can say that. And then the other migrants were, I guess, African. Oh, yeah, and then quote unquote Middle Eastern. Because that term is newer than the term African, but I'm not going to go into that. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I see. Seems like there's specifically a lot of, I would say, Congolese. I was going to say Sudanese or from Sudan, but I can't even say that because, they're pretty dark skinned, but they don't have the facial features of someone from Sudan. So I was like, nah, these are Congolese or something. Or at least some of them are. But man, let me tell you, something I've been knew. And honestly, I would say most Bantu people know. The Africans are really racist, but I'm not even going to go into that. But, people are just trifling. But of course, if you're Bantu, you already know that the Africans, they don't like Bantu people. Honestly, I would say probably a couple different groups of Africans don't like quote unquote black people, but that's just so trifling. And I think the attitude people have around here doesn't make it any better. I actually even got to hear the stereotypical "Hey, I'm walking here," cause that's a stereotype about New York, cause it's really crowded, and honestly, it really is. That's why it's really weird to me that this was like picked as a sanctuary city. In fact, it's really weird to me that some of the most dangerous places are being picked as sanctuary cities for migrants. Like how Chicago became a sanctuary city. There was nothing sanctuary or hospitable about Chicago in the first place. And not New York either, so it's like really weird that. That's funny. I don't even know who thought of that. But yeah, it's like New York has pretty much always been really, really overcrowded. I was thinking about something a couple of days ago, and I was like, New York is the new China or something like that. It's just like really overcrowded, and I don't really understand why anybody would pick. Well, I mean, I do get the agenda behind it, but like if they really wanted it to make sense, they would have never picked New York as a sanctuary city at all. It was already so overcrowded. Like this is the one place I've ever been to where public transportation doesn't even stop at red lights. Everybody's in a rush to go everywhere. There's a whole bunch of cars in the street. I also think it has a lot to do with like how the city was set up. It kind of reminds me of the power grid system in America and how pretty much the grid was created for a society that no longer exists and now there's more power demands. Or at least that's the narrative behind why they want to green the grid slash decarbonize, which is kind of a different side topic, but that's what New York makes me think of. I feel like the streets and how everything is set up and built worked for like old civilization, but it really doesn't work now. And the worsening overpopulation is making things even worse. But anywho, back to the migrants. So it seems like not it seems like when they come over here, they're already given a job. That's what it looks like to me. They're given these fast food delivery, well, not fast food, but food delivery jobs. Uber, and then a whole bunch of other weird companies that I've never heard of before a day in my life. In fact, it's mostly these other weird companies that I've never heard of and can't really remember the names of. So I'm gonna show pictures of the bikes. They actually have the bike racks in front of the migrant shelters where they go to the bikes to do the deliveries, and then the bikes have. They actually have some really cool handlebars that have some heated gloves attached to the handlebars, so while they're driving the bike, their hands don't freeze. And another thing I noticed is that the migrants doing these food delivery jobs, some of them don't look like they're older than like 13, to be truthfully honest. And like I know melanated people, or at least certain ones, tend to look young for like a really long time, but some of them really don't look older than 13, 14. And I personally don't really see anything wrong with somebody being able to work at 13 or even 12, as long as they're actually getting their money, it's not being stolen by somebody and all that stuff. But I don't like how the actual citizens that are youth go through a whole bunch of ages, and even up to like 25, revolving around getting a job. And how like if you're doing the runaway Layla to 18 thing, you have to work under the table and you can't get a job. Or if you're in some type of infantilization abuse situation, you're not allowed to work, or all your money gets stolen, things like that. I don't like the ageism where like the youth that are from America aren't allowed to work due to legal reasons, quote unquote. Really, people just don't want to get sued if something happens. That's what the 18 laws are all about, which I've mentioned plenty of times before. The 18 law is there to keep people from getting sued, which is still stupid because if somebody really wanted to sue, regardless of how old the victim was, they still could. Like if the family really wanted to, they could still try. Although, of course, it's harder. But that's all it's about. and they claim that like people who were 18 or younger, 14 or younger, depending on where you live, aren't allowed to work because of safety reasons. But it's all bullcrap, because when somebody is really in a situation where they need to work a job to like get food or something like that, and they're not able to because they're not old enough, what they end up doing is they end up selling drugs or quote unquote prostituting, which I don't even like that term. As I always say, I just call it self abuse and abuse on others. That's what people end up doing. Or they just starve or something and struggle. So, yeah, that's why I don't really like the fact that the 13-year-old looking migrants are able to like do these delivery jobs, but the citizens that are youth can't. In fact, a few years ago, there was this whole situation that I think was on, yeah, it was on the news, some news. I don't remember which station or where it was even at, but there was this 16, 17-year-old who was doing DoorDash, and somebody that he DoorDashed to found out that he was 16 or 17 somehow, and they reported him, and then him and his parents got in trouble and all that stuff that goes along with that. But it's like, what's so bad about somebody trying to make money in a good way? And that's what I say when it comes to these lawyers and judges and the legal systems. They want kids in jail, to be truthfully honest. But yeah, so that's something else I noticed. Um, I haven't witnessed any of the like migrant robbing situations that people have been hearing about a lot lately, where they like go and steal designer clothes. I have had people tell me about how the migrants have designer clothes because they're stealing it. But I mean, they also do get like thousands of dollars to come here and once they get here, and a whole bunch of other things like that. In fact, people are making it sound like this is a recent thing, but I've met people who have lived in the US for years and years on end, and their families got paid to come here. Like out of some raffle, they were picked to come just because they won the raffle. Kind of like with the whole Section 8 housing thing where whoever's name comes to the top of the list first. At least that's more so how it used to be. Now it probably goes more about like AI algorithm type stuff, but yeah, so this isn't really a new concept. It's just like worsening, I guess, or really, not only that, more migrants are coming in. They're getting stuff that U.S. citizens don't even get, and that's why people are noticing more. Also, the fact that they're being moved into certain areas where people don't want them or feel there's like, I don't know, already too many people. But the thing that people have to realize, though, is that Africans can come to the U.S. and be labeled off as white. With the way the census system works, the government tells them to label themselves off as white. And so they get moved into these certain areas and they boost more false, uh, I guess, calculations for the census. And yeah, but I'm falling asleep. I don't even know if I mentioned this because I tried to make this video one time before, but I didn't like how it came out. But as of right now, I'm staying in this pod hotel thing for like 3 days. I couldn't find a drop-in center that would like let me shower, even though I was told that like they would. But one was too far, and so I ended up going to this other one. I should have known it was going to be really, really trifling due to the fact that they didn't even have a number on their website. I got there and that lady cursed me out so bad. And I asked about if I could wash my clothes, and she told me that if I wanted my clothes washed, I needed to go to the laundromat because They're not that type of drop-in center. But that's not what I was told though. But yeah, she just had the usual attitude thing going that no, I'm not even gonna go into that. But yeah, so there is that. I got cursed out at the drop-in center. Dang. But I don't know. I kind of expected stuff like that with coming back to the East Coast. Like, I just noticed that, sure, rich people, regardless of where you go, are going to be funny acting. And there's always going to be, like, the racist people. But it still seems like people on the West Coast are just overall nicer than people on the East Coast. Kind of reminds me of different things that Pastor Stephen Darby would talk about when it comes to, like, the unhealed trauma in Hebrew communities and the stereotypical, or at least I call it, the stereotypical Jezebelic, Jezebelic quote unquote black woman, which that's what goes along with the angry black woman stereotype. And then, who was something else? Dudes of really any ethnicity with a feminine thug persona. I mean, they can be found anywhere, but it's like a lot in the South specifically, and I feel like people in the South are just really, really mean. It kind of makes me think of something that someone told me, and they were talking to homeless people, and they said that they got treated the best in California than they ever did on the East Coast. But I don't even think it's just about necessarily homeless hate. I think it's just the fact that people on the East Coast are mean in general. And I guess not even just mean, but like it's just a lot of unhealed generational trauma and people being angry and projecting the spirit of offense, all those things. And the spirit of offense, I mean, that's big these days because of all these different ideologies that people are coming out with where everybody's a victim. But also the fact that, not the fact, I don't know what I was about to say. When I lived in the hood, that was like a really big issue, the spirit of offense. Like, people will think that you think you're better than them just because you looked in their direction. Then they want to fight you, and then they're rolling their eyes and a whole bunch of stuff that only exists in their head, really. Like a whole situation. Okay, wait a minute, let me start over. Something I noticed in the hood specifically, due to all the generational